Hello, everyone. Welcome to Test of the Month Club for April 2021. We made it. Congratulations, everyone. And before I launch into this month's test, let me do the requisite intro here. We're always looking for good tests. If you have a test from your organization you'd like to share with the group, we would love to have it, love to hear it. It's great to see tests that are done in real life. This test that we have today is a very interesting one. It's just one test. I don't usually do that, but this one has hopefully enough meat to it to be interesting. So one of the challenges that we have when we look at digital advertising is the thing that we're best at is measuring someone clicks through and donates. And we get that information whether someone had intended to donate, or if they were thinking about something else, they were going to donate anyway, and they used the ad to do it. Rare occurrence, but it does happen. And then all of the things that we do want to measure, things like, I saw the ad, I donated offline, I donated online later, I donated, but I used my phone, I'm sick of your ads, and so I'm less likely to donate to you. All of those factors we'd love to be able to measure, but most of the time we can't. And so we settled for they clicked through, they donated, and some of these intermediate metrics like views and forwards and clicks and those sorts of things. So the way you would ideally want to set up this test is that you'd look at it by location, you'd randomize and say this zip code gets ads, this zip code that doesn't. You'd make sure that those zip codes are paired or relatively equivalent. And then you'd look at that location and see, I did digital ads in this area. Let's look at it over time. And then let's look at all of the donations to the organization from that zip code or geographic location. But no one's crazy enough to do this until now. So the study is called, Does Online Fundraising Increase Charitable Giving? And the link's down below. Slides are available, and we will be putting this recording up on YouTube. If anyone does need to get resources faster than that, drop me a line. I know it says my name's Shannon McCracken, your friend and mine, but it's actually Nick Ellinger, and you can reach me at nellinger@mooredmgroup.com. That's mooredmgroup.com. So, nationwide field experiment on Facebook. It's not the US, it's Germany, but it is a randomized trial for an entire country, for donations. So excited about this study. I saw this and I felt like some people must have thought in the theater during the Avengers movie when Thanos shows up, I was looking at it going, who's that purple guy? And little did I know I'd get to know him over the years, but comic book fans were sure geeked out, and I am for this study. So Save the Children Germany and a group of researchers looked at Germany's 8,181 postal codes and randomly assigned them to either get fundraising videos or the control, which is not getting fundraising videos. They did knock off the smallest 5% of zip codes because you drop below the threshold of the number of people that Facebook needs in order to be able to target them. And they locked off the largest zip codes in the thought that they would unbalance the survey as well. They served them ads over a 14-day period. They looked 12 weeks out to see the effect on this. And other than that, it was a largely untargeted campaign. So not like you would usually when we would go into Facebook, we do some targeting criteria. We believe that our target demographic is this, that, and the other. If we're doing it for an environmental organization, we may look to target people who have a history of being out in nature, hikers, bikers, bird watchers, those sorts of things. And we might also target people who give or are fans of other environmental causes. This isn't any of that. This is, let's go after this zip code and basically whoever lives in it, that's an adult. So overall, 2.2 million impressions, 1.9 million people. Only 500,000 of cases did 3 seconds of video play. So you have literally less than a quarter of people going more than 3 seconds into the video. Such is the nature of video advertising. More's the pity. I say more's the pity. More's the pity from an advertiser perspective. For myself, yeah, I probably dropped out at 2 seconds also. We got clicks on the video, we got forwards on the video, and then the researchers were able to look at, this was November study and then the months after. So they got over 13,000 donations, over 1 million euros, I'm sorry, almost 1 million euros worth of donations to look at by zip code and to see how the ads influenced it. So it's not dollar bills, it's euro bills. And we saw an increase in donation volume of 2.7 euros per day per 100,000 inhabitants. So a 21% increase, a 9% increase in donation frequency. They saw an increase of donations out to 5 weeks. But as we know, there's a cost to this. And here it is in graph form, by the way. So the cost is substantial, but they got more than 2 euros in for each euro spent. And that's obviously channel agnostic because of the way they're looking at it. But the campaign netted positive, even in a relatively untargeted way. They looked at retention rates over time, and most of these were new donors. And so they assumed this multiplier and they said, well, the ROI over the long term is about 3.8 euros for every euro spent. So made money. That's the critical thing. There wasn't any substitution between channels. There wasn't any substitution between times because they could look at things after. Also, the researchers had data from other charitable giving to other organizations, and there was a substitution effect. In those zip codes that got ads, people were less likely to donate to other organizations. You can see down below, during the treatment period, donation volume went down slightly, and donation frequency went down by even a little bit more. And then before and after, they were relatively the same. So we can say, not only did Save the Children Germany get donations because of their ad campaign, they were taking them, so to speak, from other organizations. So it's, as Norm would say, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and I'm wearing Milk-Bone underwear. The other part of this that's interesting is if you only looked at clicking through and making the donation, this campaign did not make back its money. So the traditional way of looking at this, you would say, well, the payback period on this is going to be, it's still probably pretty good. Payback period on this campaign, probably 12 to 18 months. And you're pretty happy with that as an acquisition campaign. Especially the researchers don't talk explicitly about this document, but the videos that they were going for had a monthly giving ask on them. However, so few people made it through to the very end of the video that most of the gifts they got were one-time gifts, such as life. But wait, there's more. As the infomercials say, they also did 2 different ad types. There was an empathy video that used an identifiable victim, and effectiveness used statistical victims and talked about how effective the organization is. And I'm seeing a chat question. So how is the giving to other similar organizations collected? The other organizations were willing to provide that. So I think it was 23 different organizations. The researchers had access to their donations. It's actually an easier ask. You know, with Save the Children, the researchers have to go in and say, we are going to mess with your ad strategy during November. Hold on. So Save the Children really went above and beyond to give us some data here, and really appreciate that. The other 23 organizations, the researchers could go to them and say, we just want to take a look at your data to see if there's this entangling effect. All of it was anonymized as it was passed over to them, but they were able to see zip code donation, and that's really all they needed. So given what we know about fundraising, you'd say, okay, the empathy video is going to win here. Identifiable victim, always a crowd pleaser. And we know that talk of large statistics tends to turn people off. And indeed, you did see that in some of the descriptive statistics. Watches were up and clicks were up for the empathy video, but there was actually no statistically significant difference when you looked at the donations. In fact, the effectiveness video had higher donation values, higher average gifts, and about the same frequency. And the interesting part of this is that there's a Carlin and List study that indicates that when you put additional kind of effectiveness information in there, and I believe theirs was about Duke University researchers looking and validating that the nonprofit had a good way of going about its methodology. They found that inserting that had no overall effect, but it suppressed donations among people who had given less than $100 before and increased them above those who had given more than $100 before. And so there's this head-heart dichotomy. And so that would be my best explanation for why you see these results. Same frequency, higher donation values, not statistically significant, but interesting directionally, because you would kind of say, the empathy video should probably be crushing it. Now take this with a grain of salt, because researchers designed these videos, not necessarily people who are doing DRTV. And so one thing that we know is longer videos tend to be more effective. And sure enough, the effectiveness video was 19 seconds longer, which is an odd thing for researchers not to control for. They were also very distilled versions of the message. Even if you were doing an empathy video, you would still have mention the name of the organization, have the logo up front, those sorts of things. I looked at the script. The empathy video does not mention Save the Children's name. It shows the logo at the end when they make the donation ask. And so they're not video spots that we would do. And if we were doing them, we would probably take part of the empathy video and part of the effectiveness video and put them together and create one Super Voltron Captain Planet Wonder Twins video that would work better. They also looked at whether Facebook's algorithm helped or hurt, and they found no difference. So Facebook's algorithm says, hey, we'll spend your money where it's going to be most effective. So the researchers were looking at this from a perspective of Facebook has a tendency to, there are some accusations of bias against Facebook, that it will tend to target people who there's less competition for their attention. So obviously, the more wealthy you are on Facebook, probably the more people are trying to get you to buy luxury goods, and the more people are willing to spend to get your business. And so your cost per click is higher. If you are not in those types of groups, you may have a lower cost per click, and Facebook's algorithm may default non-targeted campaigns like this to target people who are less well off. So they didn't find that difference. And you can look at that one of two ways. You can either say, great, Facebook isn't discriminating, or I would put it, Facebook isn't discriminating in this way, because there's plenty of other evidence for some of the other parts of it. The other part of it, you could say, is that Facebook's algorithm purports to get me better results when it's really perhaps monkeys in a room throwing darts. And that's no good. In reality, what they found was that some of the intermediate metrics, clicks, shares, forwards, were better when Facebook was taking the wheel. So it may be less sinister than either of these things. Facebook may just be optimizing for the wrong thing, because we know that not all of these, I mean, we saw in the videos, empathy versus effectiveness, what was more effective is at getting clicks and shares, perhaps not the same thing that is effective at getting donations. And so Facebook may be looking at some of these vanity metrics and not the end outcome. So Facebook ads do work. The effect is cross-channel, and you want to do cross-channel measurement to get there. And some of these intermediate metrics, some of the more vanity metrics, likes and shares and those sorts of things, we can use these, but use them at our peril, because they don't always drive to any sort of outcome. And so this was a really interesting study for me because it controlled for a lot of the things you'd want it to control for. And even with a less targeted ad campaign, something very broad, you were able to see gains from Facebook that went cross-channel, that increased both giving amount and response rate, and was somewhat durable in that it went 5 weeks into the year. Facebook didn't pay me to say this. Honestly, I don't really want to be paid by Facebook to do anything, but I'd say it's a decent enough proxy for display ads, generally speaking, that they can have not only an effect on those who are clicking through and making the donation immediately, but also have a rising tide lifts all boats type effect. So those were my slides. Any questions, comments? And while you are typing furiously, I am sure, again, want to say that we would love to have your case studies in here. Simple tests of inserts, ABs on your subject line, all of those sorts of things help us get a better understanding of what's going on in the real world. I love this research study, but even as we take kind of a cursory look at it, you say, well, it's not designed the way entirely that a practitioner would design it. We would do something different with the videos, for example. We would target these ads more. And so it has some applicability to our real life. But you know what has the most applicability to real life? Real life. So love to have your case studies in there. Would also love to hear your ideas for what we would like to cover in future Test of the Months. Any topics or burning issues that you have that we can address. Love to hear them. Not seeing any other questions or comments. If you do have them, if you're mulling over this material and have questions, again, my email address is N.Ellinger, that's N-E-L-L-I-N-G-E-R, at mooredmgroup.com. Thanks and have a good day.